I'm going to just do a quick login here.
Sir, I think it would be a good idea to hide the keyboard once the password.
Yeah, that's what I'm just gonna stop sharing here for just a second. Yeah, if you go on and search for me, you can find my you can find my email, but that's about it. So yeah, what do you guys feel like seeing? I've logged in now. I can just go ahead and go through kind of a set of things with creating a new project and how the menus and everything work. What I'll do is can you all see where my pointer is?
Yes.
So what I'll do is I'll point to where I'm going to be tapping since you can't see my finger. I'm going to go to new project, and basically for a project, you can think of a project as sort of the big container. It's the barrel that you put everything into. So when you're working in Strabo, if you wanted to put everything together like in a huge moving van or something, you would just stuff everything into here. And it's going to hold your pictures, it's going to hold data, it's going to hold special stuff, links to outside stuff, all of that goes into your project. And I'll just call this sed start to begin with. And you can set dates here if you want. I usually don't. I usually try to get the name to be explicit as possible. So now if I scroll down through here a bit, you can see all kinds of different information that you can enter in. Team members, org ID, areas, purpose, any of that sort of information you want to put in, you can. The only thing that's required here is that you've got to set a name to it. And sim start, I better make that into sed start. So now I'm going to hit save up here. And now I have my project. Within a project, you have a lot of different places you can head to. And the first thing you need to do is if you want to add data to your project, you have to have a data set. And what Strabo does is it puts this default data set in here just to make sure you don't come in and start working or try to work and then don't have any way to add data and can't figure out where your data set is. So this one's called default. If I go up and I hit the little plus, oops, I gotta move here, the plus symbol here, then what it does is it allows me to make a new data set. So I'm just gonna call this June, what is it, 22nd? Oops. 22nd. It's not letting me do that. So now I'm going to hit save. So now I have a June 22nd one. The thing with data sets is you can make as many of them active at a time as you want. And so what I can do is I can put this one as active. I can make default inactive. And if you look down here, you see this data set for new spots. That's one thing you have to keep track of, is which data set you're adding to. And that's where this manage project is very handy. If I put default as active and I click on the June 22nd here, you can see that I can make it either one that I want. Where this comes in handy, I use this a lot when I'm working in the field. If I have one big project for a region, for several mountain ranges that I'm working in, I may have a project for each one that then I separate, or sorry, a data set for each one that then I separate. Okay, so this is getting started with the project, and I can actually go up and hit this minus button here, and I can delete the default data set. And now I just have the one for June 22nd. What I'd like to do for just a minute, if I think this will be helpful for hopefully some of you, is go up to the 3-line menu and just kind of go through a couple things that Casey went through before, just to kind of emphasize them. The 3-line menu up here is the main menu for the system. So that gives you this set of things right here. It gives you your project name, who you are, spots, which will go to individual spots that you put on the map. And then you can sort through things like image and samples, relationships, tags. If you're working with your main map and you're mapping, that takes you there. Image base maps, Casey showed that. These are where your other base maps come in. And then we were just down in project manage, description, and preferences. And so for the project here, if I click on description, I can actually rename the project here if I wanted to. You can see that. So the project name helps you out. Strabo actually doesn't really care much about what you call things, because what StraboSpot does is, as you're working, it creates a unique identifier for each one of your observations and for everything you do. So when I created this project a couple of minutes ago, it actually created a unique identifier for the project. And that unique identifier now is set and you can't change it. The unique identifier is set on what we call Unix time, which is the number of milliseconds since January 1, 1970, I think. And then what Strabo does is it takes that time in milliseconds and it adds some random digits to it. So hopefully by that point, everything is unique. It's pretty unlikely that two people will add something at exactly the same millisecond and get the same random digits added. So the name you can change around. Daily setup is sort of interesting if you want to use that. And setting up for a new day allows you to describe what you're doing. Again, if you're measuring section, you may want to say, I'm measuring the section in Gentile Wash today, or I'm measuring the section in Canyonlands North today, or whatever. You can do that. And more here, you'll see more a lot in the StraboSpot menus. More basically gets you to these dialogues where you can enter a lot of different items. So basically the project description here gives you everything that you would have had on the make a new project menu. So let me go back to the 3-line, the hamburger menu. We have manage, description, and preferences. Preferences is where we're going to head next. And what preferences does is it allows you to control which of the little tabs across the top of the screen you're seeing. And for today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to turn on strat mode, so we're able to have all the features that Casey was showing this morning. The other thing on this page you should look at is down here at the bottom where it says public. And what public is when you log in and you upload your data, if this flag is set to public, that means other people can see your data. Your data will show up on a search map and other people can navigate to it. So I think for your exercises that you're doing, for those of you who are adding the strat columns for the project, you'll set this public to on. You'll make it public, and when it's public, it just turns blue. And I'm just touching it right now as it's turning back and forth. One other thing, let me go ahead and do the sedimentology page controls. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put on all of these. So I'm just tapping each one of them as I go down. And we'll get to something else soon, but one thing that I do a lot is coming down to the section where it says naming conventions. So the spot prefix label, normally I told you about those Unix time unique IDs. Normally what StraboSpot does is it displays those as the name of the spot. Now you can change the name for each spot if you want, but the other thing you could do is you could enter something in here. So for this I could say, okay, I'm just going to use ST for sed test, and then starting at number 1. And then you see below this sample prefix label and sample starting number. And again, this is for your convenience. If you're collecting samples and you have a very specific way you number your samples, you can enter that in on the prefix for the label. If you're using something like IGSN, International Geosample Numbers, you can put in your 3-character prefix so that you're just collecting samples. And then for the starting sample number, you just put a number in for however you want to start. So what I'm going to do now is go back to the 3-line menu, and I can see what I've done, but then I get my other options. You don't really need to worry about these other options right now, especially miscellaneous and about. We'll redo manage here in a little bit, and then we can talk about some of these others if we want to. And if you have any questions, I'm not going to be able to follow the chat, so I would be more than happy if you have any questions, just yell. Okay, so what we've gotten to so far is we've got a project made. That project is sed start. I'm logged in, and we have these preferences done. So let me go back. The important difference you'll see now in this menu is that Maps now has strat sections added to it. And that's where you get the availability of adding stratigraphy. So let me just do this and go to the main map. So I'm going to allow while using, it's setting it to my location. And I could locate the spot wherever I wanted. I could move this map around and enter it by hand if I wanted. I could, there was a lot of different, so I just added this spot here. Oops. I'm adding a line now, sorry, let me close that off. Now I did that by mistake. I'm just going to go up here to the 3-line menu, and then what the 3-dot menu does, and it's always on the upper right-hand part. What the 3-dot does is it has more specific actions for whatever page you're on. One of the things you might be looking at here is you go, okay, these pages appear one at a time. I might want to see multiples at once. When we first started designing StraboSpot about 6 years ago, our initial thought was that we need to have people be able to use this on a phone if they want to. And because of that, we ended up with this model of only single pages. We're doing some redesign work you'll see later in this course of moving towards multiple pages at once on a bigger screen. But this was basically the holdover from the first version because we had that design specification. It really wasn't until about 1.5 years ago that we changed that, and that was changed basically because of surveys of who our users were, what they were doing. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the delete this spot, and there it's gone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here, I'm going to grab the little balloon thing here, that's a single spot. I'm going to move the screen a little bit, and then I'm going to put a dot here where I am. So let me go back. You can see ST2 now is where I am. I'll click on this. I'm touching it. Okay, let me move my cursor here. There. I'm going to touch this, and then I'll get this dialog up, and I'll go to see more. And this gets me back to where I was just a second ago. So across the top here, you see spot, strat section, said lithologies, bedding, structures, diagenesis, fossils. And I can move this across. I can see interpretations now. And then at the very end, I can see more. That more is pretty important because if you click on that, it gets you back here and you can start adding items. So maybe I wanted to add orientations. If I was going to take a strike and dip, I'd do the back arrow now. And one thing with StraboSpot to remember, hopefully this will give you a little confidence in things, is when I do the back arrow, that action of doing the back arrow or anything like that that changes a page actually saves everything. So every time I do an action like that, it's automatically saved. Everything that I've done is automatically saved. So you don't have to worry about, oh, did I save this? Do I have to save often? You can back up often, and we'll get to that a little bit later, but saving, it should do pretty much automatically for you. It does do pretty much automatically for you. So I have this spot name ST2, and that's where I want to add a strat section. So I go up to the strat section tab here, click on it, and it's pretty straightforward. It doesn't do much except for add and take away a strat section. I'm going to hit add. Once I hit add, then all of a sudden the action starts, and that's when I start to get different things that Casey showed you this morning. For example, the add image overlay, view strat section. So what I would typically do here, this all looks very nice to me so far. I'm going to do a classic section here. I'll set the section, I'm just going to call this test again. And I've got the axis set to meters. I can go through, let me close the keypad here. I can go through a lot of different classifications for this if I want to, and the nature of the study. Again, the main thing that I would, the most important thing I would recommend, two important things are, one, setting the purpose, and the other is a scale of interest. And basically what that does is it helps people find your data eventually. Okay, so there we have add a section of this column. We did that. I'm not going to view the strat section or anything like that yet. What I'm going to do, I've got this ST2 here. I'm going to go back. There it is there. Now I'm going to go to the 3-line menu, and I'm going to click on spots here to show you what that looks like. And now what it does is it shows up here. I can always navigate to any of my spots by doing this. And now it says ST2 here, and it tells me there's a strat section at that spot. So if you're ever kind of lost as to how to get back to your strat sections, you can go to the spots. The other thing, you can hit the 3-line menu, and I can just simply go down and click on strat sections, and there's the name of the strat section. Now I've gone to the strat section itself. And I think this is where Casey got us really easily before and where you guys were working at before. Any questions on just this navigation and what we've done so far? One thing to remember, if you're in Strabo and you're totally lost as to what page you're at, just keep hitting the back arrow until you get to the menu or you get to 3 lines, and then you can jump back in your strat sections or hit the 3 lines and you can go to your spots and do any of that sort of thing that you want. And in fact, what I would probably do at this point is I would rename the spot. Remember, we talked about setting the automatic spot naming, but you can name any spot that you want as well. So I would say location of test. For example, you could do a lot of different things. And now, again, I'm going to go back. Now your spot menu, you can see the location of test. It's right out there in strat section. 5 years ago, when we started having students work on this, we didn't know how they were going to call things faults or depositional contacts or anything like that. And what we found out on like the second day is the students had figured out, oh, I'm just going to name the fault, the spot a fault, and it worked perfectly. So whatever is going to work for you, let it happen. So I'm going to go back to the strat sections and go to test. And now on test, I have my drawing tools, my usual spot drawing tools, zoom in and out up here. And then I have 3 other things. I got the plus, that's the add an interval. I've got this little book thing. I'll just do that right now. What that book does is it tells you, okay, what spots are in this strat section. And then if I click the little thing that looks like a strat section here, it'll toggle back to the strat section. And then if I click the 3 dots, I can go to the settings, I can zoom to the whole thing, and I can show the point symbology. Don't worry too much about that at this point. So any questions about any of this so far? Just jump on in, or else I'm going to keep adding data.
Yeah, if anybody's got any questions, unmute yourself and go ahead and ask now.
Don't raise your hand, just unmute and yell. All right, Casey, what should be the first strat interval I add?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I think I'm going to add some conglomerate.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. So what I do is I go up here and I am going to start constructing my section. So I'm going to hit the plus button. And when I do that, I get add strat interval. And I get a lot of options here, some of which are not useful for the very first one, but some of which are going to be useful later on. The first one is insert after. Basically, where do I want the new interval to go? I'm going to put it at the top, and I can copy interval data. It's going to give me a name, and of course I can click on this name and rename it if I wanted. So basal CGL for basal conglomerate. Now, when you look at these things, you have items that appear with red lines under it. What a red line means is you've got to have an entry there. So you can't add an interval without a thickness. So I'm going to add 2 meters. And then I'm going to scroll through this. And oh God, there's another required item. Now I set my stratigraphy to siliciclastic. That's my primary lithology. So what I'm going to do is I have to set a type. So I have all these options here. I'll go down and set it to conglomerate. And then conglomerate grain size, I have to click on that. We'll make this, well, I can do everything from granule to boulder. I'll make it cobble. Now you'll see that I don't have any more red things. So I could stop at this point and save this interval. If I hit save, there's my basal conglomerate. I could zoom out by hitting the minus button, or I can just use my fingers and squeeze and spread. But you can see now we've drawn an interval with a grain size with it. And I added that interval. I really want to do more with it. I'm going to go ahead and tap on the interval name. And then I get this summary here that tells me everything I've done so far. But then I can see more if I want, which I just clicked. And now I can keep editing and adding. So my primary lithology is siliciclastic conglomerate. I can enter things like color, and now I get more options. So before when we were adding intervals, some of these things sort of glom together. Now I can do them separately. So then I can go to texture, and then I've got conglomerate grain size set here. I could say grain size range if I was really trying to say, well, there's cobbles in it, but there's also boulders and some pebbles. I could click all three of those. And then as I click those, you'll see right below here that other things start adding in. So when I click pebble, I get pebble percent, cobble percent, boulder percent, maximum, minimum grain size, matrix material. There's all sorts of things that I can enter in here as I want to. I'm not going to enter any of these right now, but I could enter these features in if I wanted to. So now I have my basal conglomerate, oops, done. So there it is. And I'm going to go ahead and add another interval. And I'm going to insert it after the top. I'm not going to copy anything. The interval is going to be 2 more meters. And now I have this type of interval. I'm going to stay with beds for right now. So here we go. I got bed. And I'm going to go to siliciclastic type. Now I've got a sandstone grain size. Again, I have many choices, coarse upper. I'm going to go through this. Now that's all I'd have to enter, but I could enter something like, like lithification, lithified, etc. And I can, on all of these, enter in resistance because I can compute a weathering profile if I wanted. So I have 1 to 5, so this is moderately resistant. And then primary stratification, let's say that it's cross-bedded. So now I'm going to go ahead and save that. And I've added this next interval to it. And you're sitting there saying, okay, let's zoom out just a little bit. I could rename this if I wanted to. I could also do something else here. I could go here. I can see now everything that's in my section. I can see the order it's in. And then if I click on, sorry, let me go back. So I'm here. If I clicked on location of test, that's my section, then I could edit things in here. So what I can do, for example, is display lithology patterns. So now when I go back to view section here, you can see that I've got patterns in the units. So I have a sand pattern, a conglomerate pattern. I can also output these in SVG or vector format and do that. So here I am in my section. and I've added this interval, and I look back at the outcrop and I realized, oh, I was just all excited about outcrop. I forgot that there was a meter covered with something between the conglomerate and the sandstone. So basically now I have to say, okay, I got to insert something there. What a pain. How do I do that? Well, when I do it, I just add interval. And now I'm going to insert after the basal conglomerate. So now it lists my, if I click back here, it lists my whole column from bottom to top. And I'm going to have it be whatever it is there. I'm going to have a meter of this. And now for the type of interval, I'm going to click on it, and it's unexposed or covered. And I'm going to save it now. And now I have this ST5 here of this covered interval. And if I go back again here now, I think this is on it, and I click on here, if I want to show labels for miscellaneous lithologies, let's see what happens. Oh, nothing happens. I just have this covered interval there. Zoom out again. So you can see as I'm doing this, my column is growing vertically, and it's representing, oh, here's the miscellaneous type. So covered intervals are just clear. There's nothing there. What happens if I want another conglomerate on top of ST4 that's basically the same as this basal conglomerate? Now what I can do is I can go up here. You know, I've done a little bit of work entering in the information about that basal conglomerate. I don't want to have to redo that all the time if it's exactly the same sort of thing. Here, I'm going to go back to my plus, and it's going to insert after top. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the data from the basal conglomerate. But I still have to enter an interval thickness. And in this case, the interval thickness, I'm going to go ahead and put in 3 and anything else. Now you can see all of a sudden, conglomerate, cobble are already selected. So it just copied that information. Now if I click save, it adds another interval at the top. It has the same characteristics that that first interval did. So this is all just sort of your bread and butter adding intervals to a strat section. Any questions on anything up to this point? Just jump in.
Doc, I have a question.
Yeah.
Here is Diana from the Kansas Geological Survey.
Yeah.
I just wondering if the symbol for the conglomerate, when you change the different grain sizes, if it changes also.
No.
That's the standard symbol for conglomerate.
Yeah, it's a single symbol. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to select this. I'm going to go see more. And now what I'm going to do is go to texture, and I'm going to click off these pebbles. I'm going to make it into boulder conglomerate now. And so I've changed its classification, both in the grain size and down here. Now when I go back, it's the same symbol still.
Okay, okay.
What you can do though is if you output this into SVG, you could bring it into Illustrator, for example, and show all kinds of things there. Probably, if you're like me, you have all kinds of rock patterns in Illustrator or some drawing program like that. The main thing here is that StraboSpot is a data collection program, but it's not really a drafting program. The drafting part of this, if we had 10 or 20 more developers, we would do a lot of drafting and customization there. But it's not meant to be a drafting program. It's not meant to be a GIS. It's just meant to collect data that you can prettify somewhere else. I don't know if anybody's worked a lot with GIS. I certainly have. And I always do things in ArcGIS. but the last step is to spit it out as a PostScript and edit it in Illustrator, because you just have so much more control. Well, anyway, let's go ahead and add one more interval.
Well, Doug,
Or,
one thing
go ahead.
I'll point out here is, so the pattern doesn't change, but there is a color difference between them. It's very slight.
And there's also a difference in that this went from being just cobble to being pulled out to boulder size as well. So it does show it as a little bit different, but the pattern is the same. So what I was going to do here, what I was going to do is add another interval, and I was going to add 3 meters of sandstone, but now it's going to be fine upper sandstone. Save. So I just added that in here. I can go ahead and then go and look at the column. Oops. I may have gotten the white screen of, nope, there it is. Now you can see, just like Casey was saying, the color is slightly different. The pattern's absolutely the same. The color is different, and where it plots here now corresponds to fine upper as opposed to here, which was coarse upper. So you do get differences. It does preserve the grain size as you go through here. Now, somebody early on asked about, could you modify the profiles? And can you change these things around? And the answer is yes. But let me just give you a little word of warning to think about what you're doing. Right now, that interval ST7 is shown as being all fine upper. So if you change where it plots on the side, you're actually changing what its grain size is. So let me do this. Let's say that it fines upward. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to this little symbol here, and that's the edit symbol. Oops, there we go. Now you can see it says save edits up here. What I'm going to do, you're not really going to be able to see me do this very well, but I'm going to go up to this upper right corner, and I'm going to grab it and move it around. And then I'll save my edit. So what I've done here now is I've gone from fine upper to fine lower through this interval. Does everybody see how I did that? That's the editing feature. A lot of times you're going to do something with editing, and this is why we work it the way we do. I'll click editing. I start to edit this guy and I go, oh my God, that was a mistake. And rather than save edits, I just click the edit sign and it symbol over here, and then it undoes everything. And now that I've edited that, I can go ahead and add another interval. I'll add a meter of shale. Oh, see, I tried to save it and I had this red line there. Right here, you can see in the back. So I got to pick a grain size. So this shale is going to be a clay stone. Now, no more red lines. I'll save it. And there's my shale sitting on top of my bed that changes grain size. So I've done a pretty good job there. I'm pretty happy with that now. So what I can do is I can say, okay, I'm going to go back here now, and whew, that took me, let's say I was out in the field and that took me 2 hours, and I want to make sure I don't lose anything. I'm going to go down to manage. And manage is basically your way of making sure you've saved stuff. Now, like I said, everything in this project is saved. So what I'm going to do now, let me double click here. I'm going to quit Strabo. Strabo's gone. Oh no, did I lose everything? I'm going to hit StraboSpot. Oh, there's said start. There's that. I'm going to go to strat sections and go to my test sec. Oh, there it all is. So even though I threw out the program and I stopped it, every step along the way it's saving as I go through, which is important. But now I want to say, okay, I'm pretty paranoid. I want to do as much saving as I can possibly do on top of this. So what I do is I go back over here to the Manage menu. And remember, the 3 lines get you the main menu. And then when I hit Manage, I get the 3 lines up here so I could go back to other stuff, but then I get the 3 dots. And again, 3 dots are specific stuff on that page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click 3 dots. And I can do a new project. I can switch projects. Oh, what if I hit switch projects by mistake? I'm going to select, well, let me not do it with this one. What if I said new project? It's going to give me a warning on the other. It's delete local project warning. Oh, no, that's not what I want to do. I'm going to cancel out of that. So new project, switch project, upload and download projects. I get these if you see up here now that I'm online, I've got the little radio active up here. I'm on the internet. I can upload or download a project. So I can upload this project and it's going to say, okay, it's going to overwrite the project on the server. And I click continue. And now it uploaded it. And it gives you a status of that. One thing to remember here is, what if I had done something and I uploaded it and I made a mistake? If you go back, I won't show it right now. We can show this over the next few days. But if I went to the StraboSpot.org site, I could actually go back to a previous version. What StraboSpot does is it saves every version you upload. So even if you upload a version, the previous version is saved. So that's kind of handy. If you just really mess things up and overwrite a project, you can get back to the last one you uploaded. But suppose you're out in the field working and you go, okay, I'm doing all this work. I just want to keep making sure that it's as complete as possible. We have 3 more options down here. We have export project to device, import project from device, and export sample. What export project to device does is it's like the fail-safe. I'm going to write a file that contains all the data. On Friday, I'll explain what that actually means as far as a database and as far as StraboSpot. But if I hit this export project to device, it makes a folder for it. And this is, it just notice it's 622 at 149. That's all it does to name it. You can, of course, edit that name to anything you want, but I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And I'm going to click OK here. And now I've saved that project. And it's saved to my device. Everything's good. Let's suppose now that I go back here again and I click the 3 dots and I say new project and I don't read the warning and I put here RRR and hit save and go, oh man, I wanted to keep working on my test project. What can I do? Well, I could go to the server, but if I'm offline in the field, that's not an option. What I can do is I can go up here and import project from device. I can click on my said start. It says I'm going to overwrite whatever's there, and it says it's got it. And now here it is. I go to strat sections, there's test, and there's all my data again. So what we've done with StraboSpot for the manage part is you can save a lot of different ways and you can save at different times. One thing that I will do several times a day is I'll export the project to device. And that basically saves wherever you're at. You've got a snapshot of whatever you did and you can always go back to that. If you lose your iPad, you can't go back to it. You would have had to have unloaded it. But that's really kind of the same as if you're working in the field and you drop your field book into a vast chasm you can't go down, you're done. If you drop your iPad into a vast chasm, you're done. It's the same sort of thing. If you had exported it and uploaded it, it would be the same as Xeroxing your field book. So lots of different ways of saving this. When you go to the help manual online, the help menu for StraboSpot at strabospot.org, there is an entire page completely devoted to saving and backing up, and it starts out, I am really paranoid. What do I have to do? So anyway, that's there. All right, well, that's kind of my first little tour through adding and building a section, and some of these things like adding intervals in between, copying intervals, and doing all of that stuff together. Does anybody have any questions, or Casey or Margie, do you want to add anything or see me show anything else since I've got this displayed up here okay?
Yeah, Doug, we've got a question from the chat asking how to plot an interbedded interval. So if we could
okay, we're going to get to
tackle that problem.
We're going to get to that in just a second. This is we're crawling now. We're going to walk here in just a second. All right, anything else? Any other chat questions that I can't see?
Nope, that's the first one to come in.
That's the first one, okay. Well, I've got this shale, and then on top of this, I'm going to have some interbedded lithology. So what I'm going to do is my scale keeps expanding. I'm going to add my interval thickness. I'm going to have 3 meters. Well, let's make it a little bit thicker. Let's call it 5 meters. And now I'm going to change the interval type to bed, mixed lithologies, interbedded, succession of beds, okay? So all of these are going to say, okay, well, we're talking about more than one rock type. Let's just go to interbedded because that's probably the most common one you'll use. All right. Now, what you should have seen is that once I hit interbedded, I have lithology 1. Now I have lithology 2. So I have these 2 different lithologies here because it says, well, if it's interbedded, you better have 2 lithology types. So I'm going to have interbedded. What do you want me to interbed, Casey?
Well, let's do sandstone for our primary lithology, lithology 1.
Okay.
Interbedded with mudstone.
Okay, so what's my grain size?
Oh, let's go fine lower.
Fine lower, there's my sandstone. And here's my lithology 2 is going to be siliciclastic. I could have other types of rocks in here. I'm not limited to siliciclastic. I could have interbedded coals and sands or cherts and sands or whatever you wanted to have interbedded. But I'm got siliciclastic. And then I'm going to have, oops, not shale, you said mudstone. I'm clicking here, go mudstone. So it's a massive rock of clay. Okay. So far so good, but you can see the menu keeps going. Now I get to the bottom here and then it says, okay, you said interbed. You've got to tell me about what that interbedding is all about. So now I get to select this guy, which is, does the interbed change upward? Increase, decrease, no change. I'm going to say it increases. Oops. Click this again. Sorry, I need to click decrease. See, once I click it, I can always change it. I'm going to increase. And then I'm going to say, ooh, got to go through here. Lithology 1, maximum thickness. And I'm going to say, oh, let's say 0.2 meters, minimum thickness, 0.1 meter. Lithology 2. relative proportion. I got to enter that in. So I'll enter 50%. It's really truly interbedded. And the second one is going to be 0.3 and 0.2. If I wanted to here, I could have entered those in centimeters or whatever. Then it says which one's at the bottom. So it's lithology 1. And which one's at the top? Lithology 2. And now I'm going to do the magic. Well, I can add even more detail if I want. And that basically is going to get me to all those texture menus. But I'm going to go ahead and save this. And now what you can see is there are my interbedded lithologies. Kind of not really changing very much up section. But again, this isn't a drawing program. It is showing you that you have interbedded lithologic units. So that's great. So now we've done the interbeds. Let's see, what else should I do here? Now, you can see here, all of these are called ST9 on these interbeds. That's because this is all the same spot. You entered that data for this 3 meters, sorry, this 5 meters here as one spot. If you wanted to break this out, then you would have to, into more, then you would have to add more intervals to this. Okay, so that's the interbed picture. What else, Casey?
Oh,
Might
well, I
add
guess.
that interbed was one of the most challenging aspects of the program and trying to capture that information and display it. So that was a good question. But
Yeah,
it's test.
the display isn't perfect, but the data are there. So again, if you go to ST9 and see more, now you can see lithology 1, and you click on lithology 2, there it is.
Certainly people should put in whatever notes that you want that help you capture what that interbedded characteristics, what the interbedded characteristics are like, even though the display is, you know, not ideal, but you can capture all the information that you would typically put in your notes in some of those note categories.
And notice that when you're on a sedimentary interval, it tells you that now you had 5 meters of interbedded rock. And then lithologies tells you what the lithologies were, texture again, and composition. We haven't really gone through those very much. Quite a good exercise is to go through all of these different options here, and you can see where your bedding gets entered for different things and what your options for entering those things are. So like in bedding, that's where all your interbed stuff comes in. For example, if I go to sedimentary structures, you can see nothing's entered here because I haven't done any. What you can do, of course, is you can enter all these sedimentary structures. Again, they're not going to show up on the drawn version of the section, but the data will be stored with your rest of your section. All right.
Maybe,
So,
Doug, just one other short note is that people should also be aware that you could take your pictures of the field outcrop and link it to this interbedded interval, and that will also help capture some of the info.
yep. I haven't done anything with pictures here. Pictures are really important. I mean, that's the thing with Strabo, is it allows you to enter pictures for everything, which is very, very handy. All right, I'm going to do something else in the background here. I'm going to go to StraboSpot and log in here on my own. And what I'm going to show you is a couple other things. So here we are. You should all just be seeing the page here. I'm going to go ahead now, and I'm going to do the back arrow. I'm going to go to manage, and I'm going to upload this to the server. So I'm going to upload project, and it's all uploaded. Now that I've done that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and I'm going to go ahead and share, if I can find it, my other screen here. And you should be seeing the StraboSpot page now. Is everybody seeing that?
Yep.
All right, so now I'm going to go to my data. And these are SedStart I have up here. I can view, edit, I'm going to make it public. I can do other stuff. Don't worry about that. What I want to show you right now is this download. So I can download as shapefiles, KMZ, XLS, StereoNet. I'm going to show you Fieldbook and SED structures. So let me show you Fieldbook first. And I'm going to open my Fieldbook. So I got to stop share and start share again here. And let me find it. Okay, now you should be seeing StraboSpot Fieldbook, dataset June 22. So here is all the data for all my spots. So this is as if I was writing it down in a field book. Now this isn't quite complete. We don't have the thicknesses on here. We can output more here, but you get the idea that you could output a lot of information in the field book view. But let's go back now. Stop share. Let's go back to, have to find it every time, sorry. Okay, to this view. Let me do this. Let me download the strat section as a strat section. And let me download here. Now you can see I've got this strat section sitting here. Some of the patterns come through, not all of them. But I can go ahead and do file save as. And you can see it's called stratsection.svg. I'm just going to do that to my desktop and save. Okay. Now what I could do is stop sharing again, start sharing again. Now I'm going to go to Illustrator. And you should be seeing a German and French flag. Is everybody seeing that?
Yep.
Now I'm going to do open. Go to my desktop. There's my strat section SVG. Click open. Now I have my strat section drawn in Illustrator. So now I could go into Illustrator here and I could do anything I wanted to do in Illustrator to this. So I could prettify it, I could label more things, I could add sedimentary structures, I can do all kinds of stuff. All right, well, I think that's kind of the slow start and complete start to drawing a section and then starting up Strabo and using it. You can add intervals, you can save your data, you can save it to the device, you can upload it to the server. Let me just go back to the server one more time. And where is it? Here we go. I'm going to go back to my StraboSpot, and I'm going to go back to account, my data, and you can see here I've got all of these sorts of things sitting in here. These are other projects I have going. But if I go to account here and I go down to versioning, what you can see is all the different versions I have for different projects. So Field Camp 2016, I saved a lot. This legacy project is one that I've been working on since 2017, but that was in the new format. It actually goes back to 2015 if I went all the way back. And you can see basically different numbers of spots at different times, increasing with time. So this is the versioning. So if I had done my sed start and I didn't like what I had done, I could have gone back from the 301 version I saved to the 248 version I saved. Of course, the 248 version didn't have any data in it, so that probably wouldn't have been so good, but I could go back to a previous version if I wanted. Okay. And here's my data again. So I think, Casey, I'm going to go ahead and Margie, I'm going to go ahead and stop share at this point, unless somebody wants me to show a different example. Hopefully that was the sort of move through to setting up and adding data to a project that you guys wanted to see or that was handy to see.
Yeah, I think that was great. How about some of the folks that are on? Do you have any questions or anything else that you would like to see demonstrated on either the desktop or the mobile app? Unmute yourself and jump in.
Well, I'll just show one more thing, then I'll go back to my iPad because I like to show this. We go back to, okay, here's my iPad again. I've uploaded this project. I'm going to switch projects now. I'm going to go down to manage, and I'm going to switch projects to this thing I called legacy project. And it gives me a warning, delete the local copy, et cetera, that's fine. And now I've got Doug's Devil's Playground. Devil's Playground is a place out in the California desert. I turn that on, and what it's doing now is it's going to upload all of the, or sorry, download from the server all the information, which includes 180 spots. So those just came in. And you can see it's got 230 images to download. So this particular project has 230 images with it. So let me just let this download. I'm on the school Wi-Fi, so this is very fast. All the bars, and now I've downloaded it. And it says success, and now it's changed names. And let me just show you here. We talked a little bit about photographs or images. Let me just go to the images page. And now what it's doing is it's showing all the images that have been saved in this project. And I can keep going through this. Some of them are titles, some of them aren't. Different things. And some of these things, like these red guys down here, this is color index. This is information coming in from Strabo tools, for example. But I was able to document hand samples that I took. And anything from regional to local pictures. Here's the iPad with the Earth Cube sticker on it, making sure everybody knows this is the Earth Cube sponsored. And then this project, I can also go back to image base maps. So these are all different base maps that I've put down. Let me go to sample. This is, I made this an image base map, but this is actually a chunk that I broke up to sample and bring back with me. Go back here, and spots. You can see here, this is, there are 180 spots in here. You can see they have a bunch of DP numbers, CM numbers. I just changed these as time went on. Devil's Playground was a big work area that I had, but then as I get farther down here, you can start to see some CROs for the Cronies Hills that had data brought in, and CRU, Crucero Hills, Spectre Spur with SS, you know, et cetera. So, and you can see here all the information for any particular spot that I've put in. When you have geographic spots, like this DP20 here, if I go to this, if I click on it, I get the spot page, and now if I hit the map, it, oops, oh, since this is an image-based map, it shows me that. Let me go to a different one here that has orientations. There we go. So this one's somewhere on the map. I click the base map, and now I get to see a base map where that image, where that data is. So then when I'm in this view, I can zoom to the extent of spots. So this is where those spots are distributed out near I-15 in California, different areas. Most of the work's been done down here in this DP area. And again, I have different base maps that I've associated with this. So for example, Dunn 1977 is a base map associated with these data from a paper by George Dunn. Or I can go to Dunn period, and here is his thesis map from Rice University with my geology drawn on top of it. And of course, I was working out here, and I was working in satellite mode. So here's the satellite images where I've been working. So this is just an example of the mapping mode and looking at different aspects of the rocks here. And again, one thing I like about this is I can zoom in, and I can say, okay, this DP118 right here, I'm going to go to it down in the bottom part here. And you can see, here's a picture. See more. I can go up here to images, and I can look at that contact, which I said, looking south from DP117. So this was outcrop here. It's actually a fault between carbonate rocks that are thrust over metavolcanic rocks here. So this is just an example of the mapping mode that you can use with this. And let's see, I think that's enough for mapping mode and for this. One of the other things, let me change to a slightly different project now. Go to Field Camp 2019. Okay, and now it's downloading spots and images. And let me just say this, I work with a bunch of students on a couple of these different things. I just put these files up as public files, and if they are working on a sample for geochronology, for example, of something I collected, they don't have to come and ask me. They just go to Strabo and say, hey, find Doug's sample so-and-so. And they do, and they see pictures of it. They see where it is in the field. They see all my notes about it. So that's handy. Let me go ahead and go to main map here. And again, this is a mapping project. And I'm going to go to zoom to the extent of spots. Now I'm at an area in Colorado. And what I wanted to show you here is you can see around this area right here, around this is a nice fold nose. If I go up to the upper part and I say lasso for StereoNet, I'm just going to draw a circle around this fold area, and it said data copied to clipboard. I don't know who of you have used Rick Allmendinger's StereoNet program, but I'm going to go into that. Where is it? Where's StereoNet? Well, it's down here, so I'll just start it up. And then I go to data. I go open down here on the bottom. And it says open a file or get it from the clipboard. I'm going to tap the clipboard, add from clipboard. I'm going to replace the data that's already there. Here's my new data. I go back to StereoNet, and I can do plot configuration. I can plot planes as poles. I can put on best fits and all of that I'm putting in down here. And then when I go back to StereoNet, I get a best fit line through the data. Not a great set of data, but it's okay. So this is the interaction with another program called StereoNet. And let me go ahead and show you, while we're here, Strabo tools. So here's, I'm not going to show you Strabo tools because this is a test. I've got this set up with a test version and it's not going to work to show you what I want. So let me bypass Strabo tools there, and I'll go to my, photographs here and just pull up something like this. And what you can see from this is that it's a colored image, and you can see the 23% in the upper right-hand corner. That's basically saying that this image contains 23% dark minerals. So this is an application we call color index. There's Strabo Tools has a bunch of different analyses types in it. This is the original rock. Let me try to find a better example here. Oh, where is it? There we go. So on this example, this is something I did last January. This is actually a metavolcanic rock, a very highly strained rock here. And what I get out of this, for example, is something that tells me how much the grains align. That's this eigenvalue ratio. And then I actually get the apparent trend and plunge of this ellipsoid in space. And I'm able to then use that as structural data, for example. We're just having a paper come out now, and let me go ahead and show you a set example from this paper. It's in GSA today and will be up there soon. And Basil showed you something with this at the very beginning, where he showed you this picture right here of a epoxied thin section. The other thing I can show you here that was kind of cute with this, I thought was very interesting. Let's see if I can, let's see. Well, let me just increase the screen size here. So you can see this C right here. This is actually a conglomerate, and the layering in the conglomerate is going horizontally here. But you can see that the shape fabric in the clast is actually inclined to the layering. And in this case, this is actually imbrication, the average imbrication of these cobbles that are in the rock. So you can actually use this if you have the right set of exposures to do things like paleocurrents. So anyway, this is just another StraboSpot thing I thought I would show you. And I'm going to go ahead and stop share and ask if there's any more questions.
Not about StraboSpot.
Okay.
Maybe one point, Doug, is you talked about how students could actually look at your data sets, and so they can be shared, but the students can't modify it, right? Only
That's right. Only the person who owns the data can modify it. But again, I can show you a slightly different example for that. Let me go to strabospot.org. And hopefully you're seeing the StraboSpot page again, right?
You need to share screen.
Oh, shoot, that's right. I forgot. I stopped sharing. Okay, now is it showing up?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a search here. And this is where we're hoping to get later in the week with you guys submitting your data that you're putting together for sections, and they will start showing up on maps that people can find. So for example, this is, oops, let's see if I can zoom out here. This is a little slow today. I have a hunch people are working on this. This will just take me a second. We'll get to the goodies here in just a second. One more zoom. Let's let this go. Okay, here we go. And this isn't the whole world, but it's a lot of the world. And oh, now we're basically at the whole world. Cool. So see if the image comes in the background. Yeah, here we go. Oh, many worlds. So just while this is coming up, again, I can see all these data because it's public. I can't do anything with it. And in fact, none of us can do anything with it other than I guess we could delete the server and it would get rid of it. But otherwise, we can't do anything. But for example, there's a bunch of data up here in Alaska. That actually comes from the USGS. The USGS Alaska Volcano Observatory has adopted StraboSpot as their go-to tool. Now I'm going to zoom in here to Western US and let it zoom in here. And I'm going to zoom down to this area here, down into the Mojave, because that's where I do most of my work. Take it a second to zoom in. Okay. And there are a lot of data sets in here. Let me just zoom in one more time. Take just a second here, a little sluggish today. I was hoping this would be a little faster, but that's okay. Now you can start to see down in here, there are a lot of data sets that are sort of overlapping here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up one of these data sets, I hope. So this Airport Lake Fault August Field. So these three files right here, these three sets of spots are actually geologic maps that Joe Andrew, who's a research scientist at KU, and I are working on for the earthquake that was in Ridgecrest last summer, almost a year ago. And when I click on one of these, it's going to then pop up a map. We'll wait here and let it show all the map here. And these are all the spot labels associated with it. Let me zoom in. But you can start to see spots here that are faults that are new, faults that are outlined here. This is actually data that we're adding sort of live at this point that we collect in the field so that people can come out and hopefully go into the field. All of this is actually accessible via road. What we're hoping is that people will come out and do field checking and look at this information and basically either check it or give us comments back. But this is the sort of thing you can do. And one thing that I do a lot, that Joe, Andrew, and I do a lot, we do a lot of mapping together, but we also do a lot of mapping separately. And I'll come back at the end of the day of working and I'll upload the project and we'll get on this site, we'll look at it and talk about the geology. So if you're measuring section and you're out in the middle of nowhere, but you get back in internet contact, you could phone up your advisor or phone up your collaborator and you could actually show them what you did that day, or they could log in. Sorry, they could go online and look at what you did that day. And it's a really nice way of sharing data. So that's one thing we do quite a bit with this is try to share information where we can. Okay, I think I'm going to stop there unless somebody wants to see, unless you think I should do something different with this, Margie.
I think that's good unless people have some specific questions. So let's take a pause here. Are there any questions or anything specifically that you'd like to see? Some of you that are on, just go ahead and unmute yourself.
I can't think of anything.
All right, well then I'm going to stop my share here, and I've got another meeting I'm supposed to go to. I was going to get off now, but Margie, you and Casey can stay on, and what I'm going to do is, who wants to be host?
Okay, let's turn it over to Casey.
Sir, before you leave, real quick, I went and as you requested, and double checked 501.
Yeah?
Okay, so it says that I need to take Math 125 for it.
Okay, I'll get together with you later and make sure we get that taken care of, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds good. Okay, Casey, you're the host.
All right.
Okay, thanks.
I'm leaving.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. If there is anybody else that has questions, please jump on. Otherwise, you're free to leave. You know, you're not obligated to stay till 2 o'clock, but we just want to have this open time. So if anybody's got questions, now's the time to ask. Thanks, Sherry.
I did have one question. In the earlier Zoom call, Casey marked some of the concretions with a spot on the strat section. Is that specific for things like concretions or like roots or like where fossils are found, or would it be something that you would also mark other features like ripple cross lamination, or would you just leave those like in the unit details for the page?
You can mark whatever you want. And
okay.
Casey, do you want to show an example? Would it help you to see an example, Brady?
I was just curious if there was like a standard like way to do it, or if I wasn't sure if certain things needed marked, or if they if there was like a standard for making all the stuff on here. Because I marked them, I made the strat column and marked them, but I wasn't sure if they needed to be marked or if they could just be left in the details. So, but I think I got it.
I think it could be either way. I don't know. Casey, do you want to comment?
I suppose it depends on the nature of the feature that you're marking. You know, if it is a specific, well, here, let me share my screen. We'll I'll throw in. Okay, so we'll go back to StraboSpot and we'll just look at the data set that we were playing around with the Green River channels this morning. So I'll activate that. Go into our strat section. And so we're here. So it kind of, I suppose, depends on the feature itself. If it is sort of restricted to like a point along the stratigraphic section, then a point spot would be enough. If you wanted to demarcate like a stratigraphic interval that maybe say for this finding upward sequence where we've got that scoured base conglomeratic at the very base, and then it finds upwards, and we go into more ripple lamination versus the trough. So you could potentially do that if you want to like mark that there's a range of stratigraphic heights. I'm really blanking on the right word for what I'm trying to say here. But say our trough cross laminations in this channel fill occur from there to there. We could add a line spot, say TCS, go back to the strat section, and then maybe this portion of the column contains like planar stratified sands, as our flow conditions wane. Oops, strat sections. And then maybe we want to indicate that range is where we find like ripple lamination. Turn to our strat section. So I suppose it kind of depends on what feature you're wanting to record in here. Because if you recall, this is essentially a one-dimensional map. In normal maps, we have both an X and a Y for locating things. But this one only really has the Y direction, those pixel coordinates. Depending on what you're plotting by, be it grain size or weathering profile, that's what the X dimension is, but it's not really stratigraphic coordinates. So if you're looking at things that span a range of stratigraphic heights and you want to record sort of that range in stratigraphy, or if it's just a cool feature that occurs at a particular height that you want to record, you could do it that way.